War. War never changes.
It's a phrase that seems so basic but means so much to us all. Not only does it serve as the introduction to the world of Fallout, it's also the embodiment of the franchise's struggle to stay alive. Today, we know it as one of Bethesda's money printers, but much like a vault dweller venturing out into the Wasteland for the first time, Fallout had everything going against it.
I don't know why, but I like you, boy. Something tells me you're all right.
Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. In 1988, Interplay Productions, along with publisher Electronic Arts, had launched a sci-fi RPG known as Wasteland. The game had players exploring a world that was still suffering from a traumatic nuclear war. Wasteland was a critical and commercial success, and Interplay would soon begin development for a sequel called Fountain of Dreams. Unfortunately, Fountain of Dreams would eventually be moved in mid-development, and Electronic Arts would develop and publish the game themselves, ultimately turning it into something completely unrelated. Interplay would try their hands at another sequel, Meantime, which would be cancelled due to the decline of computer sales in the late 80s and early 90s. Even though Interplay still wanted to make a sequel to Wasteland, Electronic Arts held the rights to the series, so their hands were tied, but not all was lost. In 1994, Interplay had acquired the rights to develop games using the generic Universal Role-Playing System, aka GURPS. Sometime around this acquisition, Interplay employee Tim Kaine had been toiling away on a game of his own. Set in a post-apocalyptic world, the game ran on a game engine Kaine had built on his own, and eventually, his colleagues would join him in making this game a reality. Kaine has often recalled instances where producers would be irritated with him for distracting their teams while developing other games. Hey, with an XCOM-inspired combat system, we'd probably be doing the same thing. Despite Kaine's game having full support from his team, Interplay executives would prove to be obstacles, which led to the game nearly being cancelled 3 times. The first time it was threatened with cancellation was simply because it wasn't a Dungeons & Dragons game. Interplay had owned the license for D&D games and wanted to continue shelling out those types of games. The second time was due to the popularity of Blizzard's Diablo. Interplay took note of the game's success and demanded Kaine to change almost his entire game. What almost got the whole project shut down was when the creator of GURPS, Steve Jackson Games, got a look at it. Steve Jackson Games disapproved of Kaine's game, citing the graphic violence and humor. As one would guess, they took away Interplay's rights to GURPS, forcing Kaine and colleague Chris Taylor to completely rework their game system within 2 weeks.
It was just me working on an engine. We didn't use one of the many engines available.
But despite these hurdles, Fallout released for MS-DOS and Microsoft Windows computers on October 10, 1997. Contrary to Interplay's dismissive notions about the game, Fallout would become a commercial success for the company, selling over 50,000 copies before the end of the year. In December 1997, Kaine would announce he and his team would begin development for a sequel.
Look, just be safe, okay?
In what would be seen as a sign of new beginnings, Kaine and his team moved to Black Isle Studios, where Fallout 2 would become the studio's first game. For the next 8 months, Kaine and company would work rigorously to make sure the game would launch by its targeted September release. This short time frame meant that the team had less time to craft the world, which led to the solution of incorporating more Wasteland quests. To compensate for empty spaces between destinations, Fallout 2 would be filled with more quests for the player to engage in, ranging from the adventurous to the outright ridiculous. Additionally, Kaine and his team had decided to remove the idea of time-constrained quests, a criticism that, while minor, plagued the first game.
He was cast out, exiled. In confronting that which they feared, he had become something else in their eyes.
Fallout 2 released on September 30th, 1998, and became just as successful as its predecessor. Critics and fans raved about the game's writing and for keeping its formula the same as the first game. The only criticism was that the game was as buggy as a swarm of radroaches.
It is said it can bring life to the Wasteland.
We'd like to say things got easier for the Fallout franchise, but that would be like saying there's a Fallout game with a happy ending. In the early 2000s, Interplay was facing deep financial trouble, and in their moment of crisis, the company would rely on the reputation alone to sell games. While 2001's Fallout Tactics: Brotherhood of Steel received solid reviews, fans were critical of the game's contradictions in the plot, as well as its numerous bugs and glitches.
And that one is you.
As for 2004's Fallout: Brotherhood of Steel, well, to make a long story short, it's one of the worst games ever and was about as angsty as your typical teenager. So, it resembled nothing close to Fallout outside of its name. This would be the last Fallout game under the Interplay name before the franchise would be licensed by, and eventually sold to, a very eager Bethesda Softworks.
And we made a list of things that we might want to do. At the top of the list was Fallout.
Prior to Bethesda's acquisition, a Fallout 3 was already in development at Black Isle Studios under the codename Van Buren. The game had already been hindered twice due to other projects getting canned before Black Isle began picking up speed. Unfortunately, in the midst of their aforementioned financial struggles, Interplay chose to close Black Isle, ceasing development of Van Buren in favor of their in-house made Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. Members of Black Isle would be transferred to Interplay's HQ to work on Brotherhood of Steel 2, before that project got canned as well. As for the Fallout 3 we know and love, most Bethesda Softworks employees, most notably director Todd Howard, were fans of the original Fallout games. In a respectful gesture to the source material, the studio opted to set their Fallout games several years after Fallout 2. They also wanted to take Fallout in a new direction gameplay-wise, while also incorporating unique ideas for quests and mechanics. A prime example of this was the reworking of the VATS system. Taking a page from the Burnout games, Bethesda decided to use VATS as a visually unique feature, allowing players to kill enemies into an explosion of viscera and ragdoll physics. Fallout 3 released in North America on October 28, 2008. The game received glowing reviews from critics and fans, taking home multiple Game of the Year awards and even earning a spot at the Smithsonian American Art Museum in 2012. By the end of 2008, the game had sold 4.7 million copies.
Well now, that's a surprise.
As much as Bethesda wanted to get started on a new Fallout game, they still had to finish up their newest project, The Elder Scrolls V: Skyrim, and the studio knew it would be a while before they could belt out a sequel. This led to them hiring Obsidian Entertainment, a studio founded by former Interplay developers, as well as a few key members from the original Fallout teams. With so many familiar faces working on this project, Obsidian decided to take story elements from the cancelled Van Buren game and reshape them for this new one.
You a courier? If so, this might be your lucky day. If you don't mind walking a bit. And your eyes are good.
Fallout New Vegas first launched in North America on October 19th, 2010, a mere 18 months since the game's development began. Much like Fallout 3, New Vegas saw monumental success both critically and commercially. Unfortunately, this would be the last time players got to journey into the Wasteland for the next few years.
Troops head through here on their way to McCarran, or to the front lines at Forlorn Hope. Or they're on leave, on their way to New Vegas to piss away their pay.
After the release of New Vegas, the Fallout franchise went dark for 3.5 years. Fans were eagerly awaiting to see what Bethesda had in store, especially considering the gaming industry had transitioned into a new generation of consoles. However, we wouldn't see any answers until June 2nd, 2015, when Bethesda launched a website with a countdown timer and the words, "Please stand by." Fallout 4 was revealed the following day, with a trailer showcasing various locations. Although, one of the most glaring features was that this was a new Fallout game running on an entirely different game engine. Bethesda had developed Fallout 4 using the Creation engine, which was also used to create Skyrim. In the months leading up to the launch, Bethesda would show the public different areas of the Commonwealth as well as a new feature for the Fallout brand, base building. This would stir up a commotion within the Fallout fanbase. Some dismissed the concept as an unnecessary gimmick, while others embraced the idea of forging their own settlements. Fallout 4 was going to have a polarizing launch, and Fallout 4 released worldwide on November 10th, 2015.
Let's go, pal.
Reviews were solid, and the game went on to win several awards, but the base building was still being debated. Gaming pundits, media outlets, and YouTubers were shelling out articles and videos, defending or arguing against the base building aspect. Nevertheless, Fallout 4 still sold millions and millions of copies.
I'm pretty sure. I'll mark it on your map.
Now, here we are, on the verge of a brand new Fallout game with a new idea for the series, online multiplayer. Fallout 76 has ignited quite the discussion among fans and critics with its lack of NPCs and revamped special and VATS systems. Will this be a Wasteland worth saving, or will players leave this to the death clause?
In Vault 76, our future begins.
Check out these other great clips from Mojoplays, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.